What's up, nerds? Welcome back to the Nerdy Narrative. My name is Leslie Smith, and today is going to be a whole new concept to me to try on my channel. I actually was going to try it last month. Something happened when I tried to transfer the file from my phone to my computer. It corrupted. And I didn't just copy it from my phone to my PC, I cut and pasted, which means it was removed from my phone to put on my computer. It broke, therefore that whole hour of footage went and I was like, I'm not refilming that. I'll do it for next month. So, without further ado, welcome to the very first monthly reading wrap-up. So, a few stats to start off with. I successfully read 9 books in May, 6 physical books, 1 audiobook, and 2 ebooks. And so the first book I finished in May was Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. 5-star read all the way. I read this book because it was suggested to me by some of my friends I should read it following the Way of Kings before going into Words of Radiance. It would really increase my reading enjoyment of Words of Radiance. But beyond that, the book, the story is amazing. It is outstanding. Brandon Sanderson is just absolutely outdoing himself. Every book of his that I read, he creates a world that I want to live in. I just visualize myself being there and what job I would do and all of that fun stuff. But Warbreaker is the tale of 2 sisters who are princesses who are very integral in trying to prevent their city of Idris from going to war with Hallandren. And it is just an epic tale that follow these 2 sisters mainly, but we also have a sprinkling of other really fantastic characters. But the gist of it is, Hallandren and Idris are on the brink of war yet again, and the king has decided to make good on a promise that he made with Hallandren that he would send his eldest daughter to marry their returned god king, Susebron, so that together they could produce a royal heir and unite the 2 places instead of them going to war. And when it comes down to it, the king was like, I'm not sending my favorite child. I'm going to send my youngest brat who can't be bothered to do things the way that she's supposed to be doing them. And so instead, Ciri, the youngest daughter, gets sent to Hallandren to marry the returned God King Susebron. And returned means that person died, but they died in such a noble and or brave way that they were deemed fit to return. It's very strange. Well, Vivenna, who is the eldest daughter, who was raised knowing she was supposed to be this sacrifice, well, she was like, well, I'm not going to sit back over here in Idris and let this go down. I'm going to go rescue my sister, aka I need to go do something to feel important because I don't feel important anymore. Fantastic, epic world building, beautiful character development, and a magic system that is amazing. It's based off color. I mean, you can't go wrong. You can just imagine it's a color-based magic system. The way that he describes things just makes them burst to life in your mind. If you have not read Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, go do it now. I'll wait. No, I'm just kidding. I can't wait that long. I did a spoiler-filled review on Warbreaker, which I will put in the cards for you. In the description box below, I will link Michael Nip and Lazy Owls. They did non-spoiler reviews for Warbreaker, so I'll drop those down below in case you want to check those out. So next up that I finished in May is If It Bleeds by Stephen King, which is a collection of 4 short stories. I buddy read this with the fellas over at the Codex Cantina, Brad Proctor and Kasha from Kasha and Bookland. I will drop all their links below. This was my very first buddy read. I loved it. This was my morning coffee book read, which means the first thing I do when I get up, I go make a cup of coffee and I sit and read a book until Chris and the dogs get up. And this was my coffee book read, and I loved it because I started my day out with a smile. I knew I was going to get up, read 20 pages and immediately go over on Brad's Discord channel and start talking about it with my buddies. That was such a delightful experience. That experience alone really added to my enjoyment of this book. Don't get me wrong, this was a fantastic collection of short stories. It was not what I was expecting from Stephen King, which made it even better. These stories had meaning and good message. I mean, he found a way to sneak his political views in every story. I don't agree with that. I mean, have your views, yes. But in your line of work, maybe not be absolute when you talk about political things. Maybe leave it open to the interpretation of your reader to fit in what they believe. I don't know. I mean, he's Stephen King. I don't think he gives a rip if somebody doesn't agree with his political views and decides they're not going to read any more of his books. I mean, I don't think that's going to hurt him at all. I just noticed it is all. Fantastic. I would have to say, of the four, Rat was my least favorite. If It Bleeds was my favorite, and as a result, I will be reading all of the Holly Gibney stories. Great collection, guys. Great collection. If you've read these, I would love to hear what you thought about them down below. If you have a minute to drop me a comment. I'm not resolved about Rat. I'm just not resolved about that one. My thoughts are all over the place. So yeah, I would love to discuss that with somebody. Help me get my stuff in perspective, okay? My next book that I finished in May was Valor by John Gwynne, which was book 2 in The Faithful and the Fallen. 5 stars. All around 5 stars. I mean, right now, I've read 3 of the 4 books in this series. This one is my favorite. And it's not to knock on the first book, Malice. Valor picks up right where Malice left off. Just the huge forward momentum of this book was unbelievable. But it continues the story. Valor just caught me up in such a whirlwind that as soon as I finished it, I picked up book 3, which is Ruin. And some of you are real familiar what Ruin did to me. I still haven't recovered. I still haven't recovered. I mean, it's not my fault. It's John Gwynne's fault. It is, because this man wrote all these characters, and they're such good characters. I love them all. And when you love people who are on opposing sides of the war, you can't expect them all to live. You cannot logically expect them all to live and come out unscathed. Somebody's going to die. And not only did some of my beloveds die and ruined, and you know, I say that, and what happened that affected me wasn't so much as a death, it was just some actions, and then the most insane plot twist. It turned everything on its head. The plot twist in Ruin just changed everything. I was not expecting that. There's no way anybody could have expected that. You guys, you need to get in on this series. The Faithful and the Fallen is an amazing adventure. I have been a huge A Song of Fire and Ice fan for over 20 years. Like, I believe I read the first book in 95. I've reread that series many, many times, or I've reread the ones that are out because George R.R. Martin just can't be bothered. But I read The Faithful and the Fallen and I think, this is what Game of Thrones could have been, should have been. I mean, there is that whole part of it actually being a complete series too. It's that age-old battle between God and the devil, the angels and the demons, and the mortals who are the pawns in this war. And the fact that there's just honor on both sides of this. the choices and the free will of the men and what they decide to do or change, and just, I don't know, but it is the most fantastic series I have read in a long time. I mean, it's kind of shouldering the Wheel of Time series over too, if I'm being honest. It's just kind of like, The next book that I completed in May is The Martian by Andy Weir. Like, after a ruined me, it's so bad, but it makes me laugh every time I say it. I needed something to just kind of my mind off of the banished lands and just kind of get me back reading right. The Martian did that. 5 stars. It was a survival story, which is not something I usually go for. It was just infused with so much humor. It's about it's about an astronaut who is abandoned on Mars. It was an accident. It was not on purpose. But he is left there and he is trying to survive. And he just has an amazing sense of humor. And I say that because it's the same kind of humor I have, which is not appreciated by all. And that's okay. This book either had me feeling good or it had me laughing, which is exactly what I needed it to do. I appreciated it. This book fulfilled every reason I have to read. An escape, another world. It made me laugh, it made me feel good. It just got me emotionally invested in this story. I mean, it's fantastic. If you haven't read this book, please do so. My last physical book that I finished is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I gave this one 4 stars. It is a fantastic story. It's about a war orphan named Ren who, in order to break free from her foster parents who are in the drug trade, who want to sell her off to marry, she passes the exam that allows her to attend the elite military school. She thinks her problems are somewhat solved. She gets there. No, she is bullied because she's poor, she's an orphan, she's darker skinned than the rest of the kids. And so she has to prove herself daily. She also discovers that she is a shaman. She is able to commune with the gods, which is amazing. It's a fantastic story. It's great. It's got so much about Chinese history, martial arts, culture. The reason why it got a 4-star from me, I enjoyed it very much. I will read it again. I will be continuing the series. It had some pretty good chunks that were boring that I had to power through, and I'm glad that I powered through because it's an amazing overall story. So my ebooks that I read for May were Nightfall by Daniel Barnett. I was reading Nightfall at the same time I was buddy reading If It Bleeds, and I kept mistakenly making notes under my If It Bleeds page because I was getting confused. Every time I picked up Nightfall by Daniel Barnett, I thought I was reading Stephen King. It's that good. Right now, it's my favorite horror novel I've read this year, and it's by an independent author. So you guys that don't give indie authors a chance, you're missing out. Nightfall is book 1 of the Nightmareland Chronicles. It's the beginning, and in this beginning, complete and total night, pitch black darkness falls over the entire world. Like, the sun is gone. It explores what that does to the human race. Some of them are strong enough, are mentally fortified to handle it. They know, they understand something is wrong. They don't know what it is. They're compartmentalizing what's going on. But then the majority of the folks, they're completely off their rockers. Not only are they off their rocker, they kick the rocker like off the front porch. It's insane. The way that Daniel describes what's happening is astounding. It is so well done. It will definitely give you the heebie-jeebies for sure, but it also leaves you wanting more. Like, literally, the only bad thing I can say about this book is that book 2 is not already available for me to finish, to continue this journey. So my other ebook that I read was The Art of Dying by Kyle McKinnon. I've been lovingly describing this one as if John Wick and Jessica Jones had a one-night stand that resulted in a child, that would be Alex Mercer, who's the main character in The Art of Dying. She is a mercenary who is teamed up with other mercenaries and genetically evolved humans who are on the hunt for a rogue genetically enhanced human, and the bounty for retrieving him is $1 billion. So that's the baseline on the story. Just builds from there. It's like the X-Men and the Expendables did a collaboration on a movie, and that is this book. I mean, if it were adapted to a movie, Michael Bay would totally be the director. It was a delightful read. It was definitely one of those that I would get started reading it, I would get immersed, and I'd be like, I'll stop and finish what I need to do, like when I get to the end of the chapter. And then I would get to the end of the chapter, I'm like, no, I can't stop there. I need to read the next one. I don't like to stop unless I'm at the end of a chapter. So I was like, literally, it was one of those books. I was like, one more chapter, one more chapter, one more chapter, because the action never stopped. Like I kept thinking, I'm gonna get to a place where it's gonna reach a little, a good place to stop. Nope. Action never stopped, so I really had difficulty doing that as well. So I will end this on my audiobook, which was The Help. This was a reread for me. I've read the book before, I have watched the movie. This was my first time on audiobook, and it was a much better experience. Having read the book and seen the movie, listening to the different narrators narrate this book, I was seeing the movie play out in my mind as I listened. It was perfect. It just couldn't get any better than that. If you're not familiar with The Help, it's a story that is set in the 1960s in Jackson, and it's told from the three perspectives of Abilene, Minnie, and Skeeter. Abilene and Minnie are black maids. Skeeter is a white girl who's just graduated from college, and she's back at home. When she comes home from college, the black maid that worked for her family was gone, and her mother gives her some cock and bull story about Constantine's sister was sick, and that's why she had to leave without saying goodbye. But Skeeter doesn't accept that. Constantine raised her. Constantine and her exchanged letters all through college, and Constantine had told her, I have a surprise for you when you come home. So she's not buying that story that her mom is laying down for her. So once those seeds of doubt about her mother lying to her about Constantine, Skeeter's eyes kind of start opening up to what's going on around her and how her white friends treat their black maids, and it's not good. And so The Help is a story where Skeeter allies herself with Abilene, and they're trying to convince the other colored maids to put their stories on paper, where Skeeter is compiling the stories from all of the colored maids about what it's like to work for the white women of Jackson. The idea is they're going to put these in a book, get it published in New York, in an attempt to show what it's really like from the colored maids' perspectives, how they are treated, what it's like to raise these white women's children. They are raising these white women's children, so much so that the children usually ended up calling their colored maid mama. And just the heartbreak of what happens when that white child grows older and is taught that being black is dirty and untrustworthy. And it just gets to the point where Abilene, anytime she is in a home where there's a white baby and it grows up to be a certain age, where she leaves because she has just been heartbroken by too many of those white children that she has raised since birth, they loved her in return, and then one day they come in from school and they look at her like she's a piece of trash because it is what they were taught. They were taught. To me, the author is trying to illustrate that the importance of that you are not born thinking a certain way about a race. You are taught that behavior. I realize this book has a lot of hot topics, and depending on where you stand in life, it has an impact on how you view this type of narrative. I really enjoyed this reread. It is about my hometown. So the movie The Help was filmed in Jackson, Mississippi. All the shops and where they ate and everything was filmed in downtown Jackson or in the park called Fondren. My work was a 2-minute walk from that section. So as I was listening to this book, I was seeing the scenes, I was seeing my hometown, because as some of you may or may not know, we recently moved from Mississippi to Central Florida. As soon as we moved, the pandemic hit, so we haven't been able to go home. You know, being a little homesick, it just gave me comfort, which again, I can't say it enough. That's all you can really ask for out of a book. Wrap-ups are a lot of talking. I'm worn out. That was 9 books, 4,203 pages I consumed in the month of May. I can't complain. They were all 4 and 5-star reads for me, which means it was a fantastic month of reading. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you get to see it because maybe it won't corrupt like the other one did. Have a great rest of your week, a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you soon.